Hello, good morning. My name is Fernando Durán, and I will do the oral presentation of the final project in the class Early Acquisition of Bilingualism. Actually, I worked with one of my classmates, Agueda Martinez, with previous authorization from our teacher. The topic that we addressed is bilingualism and the production and expression of emotions. Let me explain why we consider this is a topic that it is worth to investigate on. We start with this question: how important language is in the expression and production of emotions? Because I believe that language is not just a code that we use to communicate. It also serves to interpret and give meaning. Language and emotions are deeply related because emotions are expressed through language, but also emotions are shaped by it. It is a sort of dialectic relation where emotions are expressed and at the same time shaped by language. This happens because language is an expression of culture, and the traditions and value of every society are condensed on culture. People from different cultures react differently to specific situations and give different meaning to them. That is why this research starts with the idea that culture is reflected on language, and language influences the way we produce and express emotions. The main objective of this investigation is to establish how is the relation or the influence of bilingualism and the emotions. This is to what extent bilinguals process emotions differently than monolinguals. Are there some specific emotions that are processed either in L1 or L2? Does it depends on what language are we talking about? This is the way we began to do our investigation. And there are several studies about the state of the art. There are several studies that have addressed this topic. I found particularly interesting three of them. The first one, emotions from a bilingual point of view. I would like to highlight this concept. Different languages are linked with different ways of thinking as well as different ways of feeling. They are linked with different attitudes, different ways of relating to people, different ways of expressing one's feelings. And the second study that I really found interesting is from this author Pavlenko in 2008, cross-linguistic influence in language and cognitions. And I want to highlight this idea. People feel the same emotions, but different languages might provide different means to access to or convey our feelings as well as shape the way we express our emotions. So there is a deep relation between languages and emotions. And about the third of the studies that I found interesting, I would like to comment about it in the conclusions. So the research question that guide our investigation is to what extent the proficiency in two or more languages influence the way bilinguals produce and interpret emotions. And we have divided this topic into three variables that will be analyzed. First, the acquisition of bilingualism. This is the procedures that our subjects of study had to acquire two languages. Second, the context of the country, and this is very important variable in our study, and I will explain why. And I want to mention that I live in Puebla, Mexico, a city really close to Mexico City, and it was very complicated to find bilingual family to do this research. It is very different to other countries, especially in Europe, where it is usual that people speak more than one language from birth. Therefore, we consider that the country where bilinguals live influences this process of bilingualism. So this is why this variable is important. And third, the relation between emotions and the second language. About the subject of studies, we divided the investigation into different groups. One, the bilinguals, of course, the people that acquired two languages from birth, and the other one, the parents of those Mexican bilinguals, because we believe there is a cultural influence in the process. And in these two groups, we address these two topics: the types of bilingualism. This is the process that they follow to acquire the two languages that help us to categorize what type of bilinguals they are. And second, the influence of the foreign language, the L2, in the production and expression of the emotions. About the methodology, we applied a questionnaire to both groups, and it was divided in three sections. In the first one, we included questions regarding journal information. In the second one, questions to get information to characterize the type of bilinguals the subject are, and finally questions to address the emotions from the perspective of the languages. In this chart, we can see the information of the people we interview. The first bilingual we interviewed was Emilio Hernandez Rampanelli. He is a Mexican teenager, son of a Mexican father and American mother, and at home he was exposed to both cultures and languages, Spanish and English. His parents followed the one parent, one language strategy. The second subject of study was Etienne Herrera. He is a 34 years old son of Mexican father and French mother, and he's also compound bilingual because he learned both languages at home at the same time and in the same context. The third one was Nicole Jasmine Aguirre Moore. She is a daughter of a Mexican father and an Austrian mother. She speaks both Spanish and German from birth, so she is also a compound bilingual. It was complicated for her to acquire a good pronunciation, and she remembers her mother repeating incorrect utterances using appropriate language, so Nicole hears it and learns it. And the last case we interview is Immanuel Brand. His father was a German and he always spoke to him in German, and his mother he was Mexican, so he got both languages at home from birth, so he is also a compound and simultaneous and early bilingual. About the conclusions, because I have no so much time to talk about the process that we follow to do the research. About the conclusion, I want to highlight some of them. First, all the bilinguals that we interview affirm that their first language is Spanish, even when at home they were taught in two languages, and they have they were exposed to two cultures. This is why I can conclude that the language of the country becomes dominant, at least in countries like Mexico, where, as I explained before, bilingualism is not very usual. Second, code mixing is very usual even in their adult life. There are some expressions that they feel can better be expressed on their L2. However, there is no particular topic or situation where this happens, either if they are talking about regular everyday topics or speaking about topics from work. They code mix sometimes. They actually code mixed twice when we were making the interview. And this is the third of the studies that I mentioned. I found particularly interesting the relationship between bilingualism and identity in expressing emotions and thoughts from Bakik and Skifik. In this research, they argue that bilinguals feel more comfortable using their second language to process emotions. Actually, this research it has the opposite conclusions. We believe that the context of the family is essential, despite if the L2 is French, English, German, all of our subjects, almost of all of our subjects, express that they feel more comfortable expressing their emotions in the first language, in this case Spanish. As we can be seeing this in this table, we ask them about the emotions like love, anger, sadness, disappointment, anxiety, fear, happiness, and even when they are arguing. And Spanish is present in all of them. Only Emmanuel expressed that he feels more comfortable expressing emotions in German, that he actually feel these emotions in German. But all of the rest, Etienne, Emilio, and Nicole, express that they feel comfortable processing the emotions in Spanish and also in their second language. The main conclusion in this research can be expressed like this: the context of the families in not bilingual countries like Mexico, where bilingualism is not very often, uh, influences more than any of their both languages in the processing and expressing of emotions. For details, you can see the paper that we wrote to make the conclusions in more depth. Thank you very much.